The man who grounded the Luftwaffe with a single vial. Picture this, it's the fall of 1941, and the world is in chaos. World War II is raging, and Leningrad, a major Soviet city, is under siege. German planes roar overhead, dropping bombs and striking fear into the hearts of millions. But amid the rubble and smoke, one guy, a scientist, not a soldier, does something that sounds straight out of a Hollywood thriller. He spots a downed German fighter plane, sneaks up to it, and scoops up a sample of its fuel in a tiny glass vial. That man's name? Alexander Dmitrievich Petrov. And that little vial? It's about to change the course of the war. This isn't your typical war story about tanks, generals, or epic battles. It's about brains over brawn, a quiet act of genius that brought the mighty German Luftwaffe to its knees. Grab a coffee, settle in, and let me take you on a wild ride through history, a tale of science, grit, and a guy who proved that even in the darkest times, one person can make a difference. We'll dive into how Petrov's discovery shook the Nazis, explore the economic stakes of wartime fuel, and reflect on what his story means for us today. Plus, I'll throw in some insights on why this matters to you, right here in the USA. Ready? Let's roll. Chapter 1. Leningrad under fire. It's 1941, and Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, is a city under siege. The Nazis have it surrounded, cutting off food and supplies. People are starving, buildings are crumbling, and German planes dominate the skies. It's a scene of desperation, but the human spirit doesn't give up. Among the chaos, Alexander Petrov, a scientist with a knack for chemistry, is about to stumble onto something big. Imagine walking through a war-torn street, sirens blaring, and spotting a crashed German Messerschmitt Me-109. Soviet anti-aircraft guns just scored a hit, and the plane's a wreck. The pilot's being hauled away, and a crowd gathers, gawking at the twisted metal. But Petrov, he's not staring at the wreckage like everyone else. He notices a trickle of fuel leaking from the plane's tank. To most, it's just a puddle of kerosene. To him, it's a clue, a potential game changer. Petrov isn't a soldier. He's not packing a rifle or leading a charge. But he knows something the others don't. Wars aren't just won with bullets. They're won with science, strategy, and smarts. So, while no one's looking, he carefully collects a sample of that fuel in a small glass bottle and slips away. This tiny act, barely noticed in the chaos, is about to set off a chain reaction that'll ripple across the battlefield. Who is this guy, and why does his fuel sample matter? Let's find out. Chapter 2. Meet Alexander Petrov. The unsung hero. Alexander Petrov wasn't born a war hero. Born in 1895 in St. Petersburg, Russia, he grew up in a modest family, the son of a government clerk. As a kid, he was a nerd for math and science, excelling in a school that focused on practical skills like chemistry and physics. Think of him as the guy who'd rather tinker in a lab than play sports. In 1913, he enrolled in a military academy, dreaming of a career in the army. But World War I threw a wrench in his plans, sending him to a remote infantry unit in Orenburg before he landed in Petrograd, St. Petersburg at the Higher Military Chemical School. There, he met a mentor who'd shape his life, Alexei Favorsky, a rock star chemist known for his groundbreaking work in organic chemistry. Favorsky saw something special in Petrov, a spark of curiosity and drive. Under his guidance, Petrov dove into the world of fuels and chemicals, laying the foundation for his future. By the 1930s, Petrov was a big deal in Soviet science. At just 36, he was running the Leningrad Slate Institute and leading his own research team. His work focused on fuels made from shale, a critical resource in a country gearing up for war. When World War II hit and Leningrad was besieged, Petrov could have evacuated. Most would have. But he stayed, braving hunger, cold, and constant shelling to protect his lab's equipment. That's the kind of guy he was, loyal to his work and his country, no matter the cost. Chapter 3. Cracking the code of Nazi fuel. Back in his lab, with that vial of German fuel in hand, Petrov got to work. The conditions were brutal, no heat, dim lights, and the constant threat of bombs. But Petrov wasn't fazed. He was a scientist on a mission. Using techniques he'd developed himself, he analyzed the fuel and made a jaw-dropping discovery. the Nazi kerosene started to break down at just 1 for F10C. Compare that to Soviet aviation fuel, which stayed stable at a bone-chilling -76 F60C. This was huge. The German Luftwaffe, with its sleek fighters and bombers, was a cornerstone of Hitler's war machine. But Petrov's tests showed they had a weak spot: winter. Russian winters are no joke. Temperatures can plummet far below 1 for F. If the Soviets could exploit this, they could ground the Luftwaffe without firing a shot. Petrov didn't waste time. He contacted the Soviet Air Force Command, explaining his findings. At first, they were skeptical. A scientist with a bottle of fuel claiming he could change the war. Sounds like a long shot. But Petrov pushed back, offering to run more tests. The military scrounged up additional fuel samples from other downed German planes, and every test confirmed his discovery. The Nazis' fuel was no match for Russia's icy winters. Chapter 4. Winter Strikes Back. By November 1941, winter was in full swing. The thermometer was dropping, and Petrov's intel was about to pay off. The Soviet Air Force hatched a plan. On November 6th, the 125th Bomber Regiment, led by Major Sandalov, launched a surprise attack on a German airfield. The mission was high stakes. If Petrov was wrong, the Soviet planes could be sitting ducks for German fighters. But he wasn't wrong. As Soviet bombers roared in, the Germans scrambled to get their planes airborne. Except, they couldn't. The fuel in their tanks had turned to sludge in the freezing cold. Not a single Messerschmitt took off. The Soviet strike was a smashing success, obliterating the airfield and dealing a massive blow to the Luftwaffe's first air fleet. It took the Germans 6 months to recover, and they were forced to rethink their entire fuel strategy, a costly delay in a war where time was everything. This wasn't just a win for the Soviets. It was a masterclass in using brains over brute force. Petrov's discovery turned Mother Nature into an ally, proving that science could be as powerful as any weapon. Chapter 5. The Economic Stakes. Fuel is the lifeblood of war. To really get why Petrov's discovery was a big deal, let's talk economics. In 1941, Germany was a war machine running on fumes, literally. With limited access to oil, the Nazis relied heavily on synthetic fuel made from coal. According to historical records from the German Federal Archives, the Wehrmacht burned through about 1.5 million tons of aviation fuel a year. But as Petrov found out, this fuel wasn't up to snuff for harsh winters, putting the Luftwaffe at a serious disadvantage. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union had a leg up. They had access to oil fields in the Caucasus and Volga regions, pumping out around 33 million tons of crude oil annually, per Russian state data. This let them produce high-quality, cold-resistant fuel. Petrov's discovery amplified this advantage, turning a logistical edge into a strategic hammer. The economic fallout for Germany was brutal. Losing an airfield wasn't just a tactical defeat, it cost millions of Reichsmarks in planes, fuel, and manpower. The Nazis had to scramble to reformulate their fuel, diverting resources from other fronts. For the Soviets, it was a low-cost, high-impact win. Petrov's Vial didn't just ground planes, it hit the German war machine, where it hurt most: their wallet. Here in the USA, we can relate. Think about how much we rely on energy today: oil, gas, renewables. In 2024, the U.S. Energy Information Administration reported that America consumed about 20 million barrels of oil daily. Energy security is national security, just like it was in 1941. Petrov's story reminds us how critical it is to stay ahead in the tech and resource game. Chapter 6. Life after the breakthrough. After his game-changing discovery, Petrov was evacuated to Moscow, where he took a professorship at the Mendeleev Chemical Technological Institute. Teaming up with his old mentor Favorsky, he trained a new generation of scientists to support the war effort. His lab became a hub for developing fuels and chemicals that kept the Soviet military running. Petrov wasn't chasing fame. He didn't care about medals or headlines. Colleagues described him as humble, but relentless, always cracking jokes to keep spirits high, even in the darkest times. After the war, he kept pushing the boundaries of science, but his role in stopping the Luftwaffe stayed under the radar. That's what makes him a true hero, doing the work without expecting a spotlight. Chapter 7. What Petrov teaches us today. So, What's the takeaway for us in 2025? First off, never underestimate the power of knowledge. Petrov wasn't a soldier, but his brain was a weapon that changed the game. In today's world, whether it's AI, renewable energy, or cybersecurity, smarts are our greatest asset. The International Energy Agency reported in 2024 that global investment in clean energy hit $2 trillion. That's the kind of innovation Petrov would have championed. Second, his story is about sticking to your post. In a city under siege, Petrov could have bailed, but he stayed, risking everything for his work. That's a lesson in grit we can all apply, whether you're grinding through a tough job or chasing a dream. Finally, Petrov shows us that anyone can make a difference. You don't need to be a general or a CEO. A teacher, a coder, a student. Your small actions can spark big change. Got an idea? A project? A cause? Run with it. Your Vial might be the next big thing. Chapter 8. Why this hits home in the USA. Here in America, we love stories of underdogs who beat the odds. Petrov's tale fits right in. It's like something out of a blockbuster. Think Oppenheimer meets The Imitation Game. But it's also a reminder of the power of innovation, something we pride ourselves on. From Silicon Valley to NASA, the USA has always been about pushing boundaries. Petrov's story challenges us to keep that spirit alive. Plus, it's a wake-up call about resilience. In 2025, we're facing our own battles: economic uncertainty, climate change, you name it. Petrov's example shows that even in the toughest times, one person with a clear head and a bold idea can turn the tide. So, whether you're in New York, Texas, or California, let's take a page from his book and keep pushing forward. Alexander Petrov's story isn't just a dusty page from history. It's a call to action. His little vial of fuel reminds us that big victories start with small steps. So, what's your vial? What's the idea or action you're holding back on? The world needs more Petrov's, people who see opportunity in chaos and act on it. Hey, if this story fired you up, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Drop a comment below, tell us what inspired you, or share your own story of making a difference. Let's keep the conversation going and inspire each other to be the spark that changes the game. Together, we can make history.